Welcome back to this second video on cheese. In the last video we looked at the different varieties of milks that are used to producing cheese, and this time we're going to look a little bit more closely at texture, and we're going to start by looking at the Cheshire cheese. So the Cheshire that we have here is from Appleby's farm, and it's produced up in Cheshire, obviously. This has quite a dry, crumbly texture to it, and we can show you that by having a little slice. This particular cheese, like most cheeses, is made by removing the whey from the curds. The milk is heat treated, and at that point they would add something called annatto, which is a colorant, but it is odorless and flavourless, and comes from the stamen of a flower, and that's what gives this natural slightly sort of pinkish orangey colour. The cheese is then matured for approximately 3 months. It's cloth bound, and it's like the cheddar in the last video, truckle, so it is kept in a cloth to keep it from from any bacteria or impurities, whilst that process allows the cheese to mature and strengthen its flavour. And moving on from that, we're going to look at Vacherin Mont d'Or, and this is completely the opposite. This is a very soft, very sort of raw milk, which is produced up in the Jura, and there's an interesting story behind this which we can look at, but it's a very, very soft cheese, and I'm going to show you this now with having dip a little spoon in, have a little look. We can just see how runny that is. In the winter months, when the cows are brought down from the fields up in the Jura, they are kept in little sheds and fed on straw and hay, and they produce a very, very rich milk. In the summer months, the cows are out in the fields and they've plenty of grass to run around on and enjoy the grass to produce the milk. The abundance of milk that they make produces Gruyere and Comte, but in the winter months, when there is much less milk available, they produce this very rich Mont d'Or. This is a cheese that is only really produced, therefore, between November and the end of February. So very specialist, and something we look forward to each winter. Moving on to Morbier here at the front, an unusual cheese made with cow's milk. Again, slightly smoother, creamier texture, like you would find in the Comte, but not as mature. The unique line that you see across the middle of the cheese is actually produced by a vegetable ash. Traditionally, the story is told that the cheese on the bottom is made from the morning milk, and that having produced all the hard cheeses, the Comte, there was insufficient left to produce a further cheese. So they put it into a small mould and left it in front of a fire, and a fall of soot or dust from the chimney laid across the cheese. And then in the evening, when they produced all the milk and they produced the Comte, the hard cheeses again, the small bit of milk that was left was then placed over the top of the ash into the mould, and the cheese was allowed to mature, and that's how we get this line. Today, obviously, this is a much more traditionally made as a whole cheese and then cut, and the line is developed through vegetable matter. But a very unique cheese, slightly softer in texture. Finally, we've got Parmesan here, the large cheese at the back. 38 kilograms for a whole cheese, a huge cheese. Parmesan naturally has a very granular texture, and this is the way that it's produced again. Similarly to the Cheshire, the curds are drawn from the whey. The whey is drained off, and the curds are then placed into a very large stainless steel cylinder and pressed, and then they are salted in brine for up to 20 days, and that's what creates this very hard, very salty, very sort of granular texture as it's matured for up to 2 years. Really, really good cheese, great on all sorts of cooking, but not really very often seen on a cheese board in this country. Finally, we've got the little Kiderton ash, which we mentioned in the first video. We've cut this in half now, and you can see this light white crumbly texture that it starts off with. But if we leave that to mature a little bit longer, you will develop that smooth, creamy, almost liquidy texture just underneath the surface of the mould that's naturally growing. So there we are, little video on texture, and in the next video we're going to look a little bit on colour and flavour.